Thank you. Thanks, Stu. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure working with Stu and Liz over these last 6 months. And I have to admit, it really does amuse me when we get townies arriving at the yard in their immaculate cars, and then they end up leaving a bit mud splattered, maybe a few dents in the bonnet from the old Dartmoor pony. But that's all part of the fun of working with horses. 15 years ago, I took on a young Arabian colt. And that colt proceeded to teach me more about human nature than I ever realized was possible from a horse. And I'd ridden ever since I was 13, so I thought I knew about horses. But this horse, I tell you, is something else. Here he is at work. His name is Shirani, and he now works as my closest colleague on health, education, and well-being projects with Horsemanship for Health. Now, some of you in the room might be curious to know or hear a horse being referred to as a colleague. We're extremely familiar with dogs working with people as assistants, dogs, and colleagues. Here's some Labradoodles in action. I'll put that one there for you, Stu and Liz. And we're perhaps less familiar with the ideas of horses supporting humans. But of course, humans have a long association of working alongside humans. Human civilization as we know it is not possible without the help of horses. If you think of all the battles that have been fought for our freedom with horses as our partners. Napoleon famously went into battle on a grey Arabian, had to be a grey Arabian, named Marengo. And Marengo became Napoleon's closest ally and friend. And in journals, Napoleon writes about his close relationship with this Arab stallion. And apparently when Napoleon used to get lost, I love this idea of Napoleon, of all people, getting lost, he used to hand the reins over to his horse, and his horse would find the way back to base camp. His horse looked after him. Famously, Marengo was not only renowned for his loyalty, he was also renowned for his powers of endurance. And Arabs, like Shirani, are amazing. They can go for long days without food and water. And Napoleon, according to some accounts, Marengo, the horse, at the age of 19, carried Napoleon 3,000 miles to Moscow and back, presumably with Napoleon riding him. And I think that's some feat at the age of 19. There's not many people who could do that. But new roles are emerging now for horses, now that they are no longer required to service in war. They are now working as collaborators, as companions in peace. And here you see a young war veteran from Afghanistan working with a horse. In America and in this country, there are programs with war veterans working to help combat the effects of post-traumatic stress. Horses are working alongside people now in all sorts of programs, innovative programs. Horses are helping people who have suffered devastating illness, such as cancer. Horses are working with people who have been involved in domestic violence situations. Horses are helping people in recovery from drug and alcohol substance misuse. Horses are helping people in all sorts of therapeutic situations. In our own work, we work with this young woman who suffered a stroke as a baby. And when she arrived, she couldn't speak. She writes with a notebook. And a lot of the work we do with our horses, our pony here, Bella, is non-verbal. We teach people how to read horses. And the language of horses is through body language. It's non-verbal. And for this young lady who had no power of speech, it was transformative. She arrived, she was fairly unconfident, and after a series of weeks working with her, her whole body came alive. She was absolutely radiant, and the work with horses brought her out of herself. And I'll never forget, and I'm sure Jo remembers it too, the last walk that she took with the ponies. It was just so moving to see her confidently leading a pony out on a walk. And you wouldn't have thought that that would have been possible for this young woman before she did that. We often involve the horses in our business meetings. That's what one of our traditional business meetings looks like. And the horses are there. We had a meeting, this was only a couple of weeks ago, with a group of mental health professionals. So what we do is we showcase our work to people that we want to work with. And we very much believe that those in the front line of mental health, the care workers, are deserving of as much support for their own well-being as the clients themselves. And we're also working in the field, developing the field of business work. Horses are working not only therapeutically, but in the world of leadership and business. And at the moment, this is our 10th summit meeting with our Lloyds Bank mentor. My colleague Jo has just graduated from the Plymouth School of Social Entrepreneurs, and our Lloyds Bank mentor, another one with a flashy car, Stu, he's got a Jag though, arrived, and he's very excited about the work that we're going to be doing, and we're going to be inflicting the horses on some bank managers in the spring. So who knows what will happen in that field of leadership. Stuart, and has been mentioned by many others today, about the power of a quiet mind. Being with a horse just enables you to really ground yourself. And I only wish that Shirani was here right now, because I would probably be doing something like that, actually. Just having a close connection with a horse for a few moments can lower blood pressure, can calm your heart rate, can get you naturally into that space of clarity, so your own well-being emerges. And we see this time and time again with the people that we work with. They arrive tense, their body language is very clenched, and then after 45 minutes, 90-minute session, they open up, their shoulders come down, they relax, and something else comes through, their true self. One of our ladies that we've been working with, she says, and the phrase just resonates with me, I forget to worry. When I'm with the horses, I forget to worry. And I think that's what the horses give people. They give people a chance to just step out of all that human stuff that we carry around and just become ourselves, just become open and who we really are. And the interesting thing about horses is that they really want us to be who we really are. That's what they're looking for. As herd animals, they live in large family groups. And if you live in a large family group, as my sister and I were laughing at one of the comments of a large family, then you know that you need to look out for each other, that you need to know that all your family members are okay for you to function as a group. And often in large family groups, there's usually someone who isn't okay. And the horses have that similar kind of dynamic, that if somebody arrives who's maybe just not feeling quite themselves, the horse will want to go up and explore that with them and just get them alongside. And we see this time and again in sessions. Our horses are not exactly trained to do this work. They want to do it. They offer it. Often we work with them out in the field. They're not haltered. They're not in stables. They choose to do this work with people, and it's very moving when they do make that choice. For me, horses are a way of life. And as I said at the beginning, working with Shrani was a revelation. And I have to say, he really changed my life. I mean, he's the reason why I'm standing here today. Sometimes when I'm out in the field with the horses, I remember a promise I made to this young man who was my closest friend at school. His name's Steve. Steve and I were one of these great friends who used to support each other in all our crazy schemes. As you can see from that photo, he's a man who loved impossible projects. And Steve and I, in our 20-year friendship, used to have regular go-for-it phone calls. And one of our go-for-it conversations was me saying to him, after I completed my philosophy degree, was that I wanted to get a horse. I lived in London at the time, so getting a horse was really not on the agenda. I don't know where it came from. Now I know that it was my inner wisdom saying, this is what you need to do. I needed to go back home to Devon and get a horse. And he said, you should go for it. Sadly, Steve didn't get to see me fulfill my dream of working with horses because Steve killed himself a few months before his 40th birthday. Suicide is something really difficult to talk about. And for a long time after he killed himself, I couldn't talk about it either. It was not something I could discuss. It was not a word I could even mention to people. There are lots of euphemisms around suicide. I've since done some suicide prevention training, and I'm now really passionate about talking about suicide. Suicide is something we do need to talk about because of this. Every day in the UK, 16 people take their own lives. That's 6,000 people a year who take their own lives. And suicide is the biggest killer of men under 45 in the UK. That's more than road accidents. Suicide is a social problem we cannot afford to ignore. As I said, that Steve was a man who loved impossible projects, and one of Steve's dreams was to climb Everest. He achieved that dream before he died, and I remember speaking to him about it, but unfortunately, he found it quite difficult after he came back from Everest. There was something about going to the summit of your dream and then coming back and finding it a disappointment that plunged him into a depression that he never came out of. He admitted himself to a psychiatric hospital in Aberdeen, and then he seemed to get better, and then he came home from a weekend, and his neighbour found him hanging from a tree. I took a long time to get over Steve's death, and the way I did it was by plunging my energies into these guys. They helped me to look in the right direction. They showed me that I could do something positive with my deep loss. And right from the start, I knew that Sharani was something special. I don't know if you can see from this picture, but he has one blue eye, which meant he had a lot of visitors when he was a young colt. A lot of other people thought Sharani was very special. And like Steve, he was a bit of a ladies' man, as you can see, and also a bit of an action man. He loves adventure, still does at the age of 15. He can still go for the burn. And there was something about Sharani that was, he was an incredible force to work with, and I knew that I was working with something special. What he used to do in our early days would he'd take me off for walks, and he'd like to show me things. And this could be things in his fields that he thought were particularly interesting, like a pile of bloodied feathers that he would dip his nose into, and then look at me inquiringly as if to say, what's gone on here? Dogs, children, people who he thought were interesting, some cough sweets in somebody's pocket, he would take out of somebody's pocket and explore. He was incredibly curious. I remember one evening at dusk, I was walking up to him to see him after work, as I normally did, and he was very insistent that I should come and check out this black shape that was in his field. And as he was taking me closer and closer, I was thinking, I'm not sure about this. And this is what I saw. Looking at me, and I told him, you know, I think I've seen enough. And a bit like Michael, I decided that I would put myself on a horse training course. This is actually a section of my library, I'm afraid to say. So I read every single book about horsemanship training that I could lay my hands on, and then I realized that horsemanship actually is about how you are. So I then started working my way through the second part, which was personal development. And then I had a kind of a light bulb moment, and I realized that actually the horses had been trying to tell me that what I needed to do was to listen to my own inner wisdom. I had a wake-up call that all of this was not going to teach me what I needed to know about horses. What I needed to know about horses had to come from the inside. That's what they thought of my efforts when I went out into the field. So a horseman who I really admire, Tom Dorrance, sums it up in this quote, that horsemanship is really about how you are from the inside. And horses, they've been on all the 3 principles courses. I tell you, they know it. They know this stuff. And when I went to a conference, I thought, God, the horses are wonderful teachers of this. They really understand this. So my whole relationship with the horses changed as a result of working on this inside approach. And I just want to finish with a story about this horse, Dragonfly. Dragonfly is one of the most intuitive, sensitive horses you could meet. And we've been working with a lady now for some time who had a strong connection with Dragonfly when she first met him. In fact, the very first session, she was in tears, and she didn't know why she was in tears. It turned out that she'd gone through a trauma that had put her in a very dark place in her life, where she had ended up being suicidal. Over a number of sessions, she worked with Dragonfly, and Dragonfly helped her to see that she was not a victim. She didn't have to carry this darkness with her. She was free. She could be free. And after a session on the anniversary of a traumatic event, which she wanted to come to the horses because she wanted to replace that dark trauma with something beautiful, she went away after the session and she sent us a message, and she said that she felt free for the first time in years, that she understood now that her own resilience, her own feelings of freedom, she could access them, and Dragonfly led her towards that. And I'd like to share with you a poem she wrote about that experience, because her words can express her feelings from the inside far better than I can. I think I've got one more slide. In fields of green, you stand so proud, hooves firmly on the ground. You look at me, I look at you, and hear not a single sound. Oblivious to everything, for a while I can forget, put my memories and fears away as we gently connect. I feel you breathing in and out, and try to do the same. You stand so still and patiently in your tall, magnificent frame. Dragonfly, come walk with me across the fields wide, for today's a new beginning, with you right by my side. Thank you, Joe and Dragonfly, is what I'm trying to say. You have helped me more than you will know to walk tall and proud today. So that is the image I'd like to leave you with, the image of walking tall and proud. I know that the horses can give people the courage and hope and optimism to walk that way for the rest of their lives. Thank you.